Paige, welcome to Forbes on Fifth.
Thanks, Maggie. This is awesome.
Well, I want to start with the news. You recently became the official non-interim CEO of AllRaise.
That's right.
I always assume that our Forbes readers and watchers know what AllRaise is because of the 2018 cover story, but just for those who might not be familiar, can you explain what AllRaise is?
Yeah, AllRaise is really passionate about making sure that we change the way that venture capital and tech work to include more women and non-binary investors, founders, and operators at the table. And so what that's looked like for us since the beginning is creating programming and events and community where women and non-binary investors, founders, and operators can come together to get the knowledge and the skills they need to be successful.
And you have a dashboard on allraise.com that kind of tracks the number of female check writers.
We do.
And I know you've been updating that. Where do things stand right now? Because we are in a very tough economic environment. Yep. How are you finding this moment for female check writers who want to break in?
When we started this journey, we found that 9% of all VC check writers are women. And our most recent data says that it's 14%, and we're getting ready to release new data, which is exciting. So we're seeing growth in the number of women check writers. In this environment right now, our focus is on keeping them in their seats so they can be successful. And then when we come out of this economic situation, we can continue to grow the number of women check writers.
How do you keep them in their seat?
Yeah, great question. So what we've been talking to women check writers about from coast to coast, because I've been on a strategy tour. I think I told you, was it 5 cities in 4 weeks? And this week we're in New York, next week we're in Miami. Is that women need access to the networks to get the best deals. They need peer support. They need male allyship, which is actually a critical component of women's success, whether it's because of opportunities to get hired for a check writer role or promoted into a check writer role, or access to the best deals.
We hear about male allies in so many areas. I did a story on the number of female CEO, CFO duos in publicly traded companies. It was 4 in the 500 largest at the time, and I think we've lost at least one of those sets because someone stepped down.
Okay.
And the women who had reached those roles said to me, it's the male allies and mentors I've had that have gotten me to this position. So are you meeting with men, or are men going to be at AllRaise events, or?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, men have been part of the journey since the very beginning of AllRaise. They've been some of our earliest sponsors and supporters. They're part of our program. So for example, VC Champions brings together principals with top GPs. And we have so many men from top firms there advising women principals on how to step into that check writer role and how to be successful. I know that they will continue to be part of our work. In fact, we've been talking to male LPs, male GPs. We've been talking to men in positions where they can fund our movement. So it's really exciting because men want to be part of this work. They have been part of our work, and they will continue to be for years to come.
Are more of your conversations with women who want to be check writers about joining existing firms or people who are starting their own?
It's both. So we've heard from both women who are at firms and want to grow in firms, especially really established firms that serve as a training ground for investors. And this is a really exciting insight that we've gained from so many women GPs, that they cut their teeth on investing at established firms. But we've also heard from women who've gone out to start their own firms that allow them to focus on a thesis that they're really passionate about, that aligns with their expertise. And in both cases, we need to give women access to the networks, we need to give them mentorship and support, and then access to the capital so they can continue to grow their firms if they're an emerging manager.
Access to capital is a huge question. There have been a lot of reports about the dry powder out there. What are you hearing? I guess let's start with the established firms. Are the founder or the VCs that you're talking to, are they sitting on money right now, waiting for things to cool off, or what's the temperature check?
Yeah, so we've talked to several people in our community about this, and you're right, there is dry powder out there. And of course, because of the macroeconomic conditions, interest rates, changes in valuations, and just general changes in the economy, we know people are sitting on money. But here's what we've heard. When it comes to pre-seed and seed stage investing, companies are still being started, so investments are still happening. And that's really exciting because there are so many women who are starting companies now. There's an opportunity to invest in women, and we know that they're great bets. So that's really heartening. That we do know that there's a slowdown in a few different places. Growth stage and the Series A, people are just slowing down because they want to make sure that they're making the right bets. And I think they should, which is really great. We've also heard that investors are really investing time with their portfolio companies. So helping them become more capital efficient so they can survive during this time and they can build more sustainable companies. The other thing that I want to share with you that I think is really interesting is we've heard from women who are raising funds right now that It's hard to raise a fund, but we've also talked to LPs who are really excited to support women emerging managers out there. So we want to see more of that as well.
Well, that's good, because I was fortunate enough to attend the AllRaise VC Summit last year as the market was starting. Actually, it had maybe for a few weeks at that time had been taking a dip. And one of the things that we hear is that in moments of economic uncertainty or hardship, it's the diversity investments that get pulled back.
Yeah, of course,
Have you been hearing that from, I guess let's, from the check writer perspective first?
Yeah, so we have heard that from the check writer perspective. I haven't heard people say, I don't want to invest in women, or I don't want to invest in people of color. I've heard about folks having that experience. And so what I would say is that we know for sure that investing in diverse teams, that having diverse investment teams make firms more successful. And so as we continue to look at where venture capitalists can be successful in the next several decades, what they need to do is realize that the market is changing and shifting. And so if you continue to pattern match the way that you've invested in the past, you're going to miss out. And there's so much data that says that women founders operate with less capital and do more, create more value for their investors. And there's so much research that says that women investors are really successful. They bring in more value with exits. They bring in better returns.
I've seen a lot of statistics. It's a mess of
I
statistics
can only
in my
imagine.
mind. No, but about the capital efficiency by female founders,
Oh, yeah.
there is data that shows that women in general, but especially in tough economic times, these are the companies to bet on.
That's right. Female Founders, was it the Female Founders Fund, reported out that women operate with 25% less capital per month than other founders. And that's incredible, especially in markets like now, because if I can't raise capital, I need to be able to survive until I can get that next round.
So what's your message to check writers in this moment? What's your advice for if someone's watching this and they have money to deploy? What's your advice?
So I would say if you're an investor right now, you should bet on women. The data says that women are great at running companies. They have a really unique insight into the market. In fact, Monique Woodard's paper, The $1 trillion Female Economy, tells us that women control 85% of consumer spending, which is retail, that's healthcare, and that is household needs. So if you think about where you should be pointing your money to tap into large markets and really successful founders, it's women.
So interesting. I've seen those statistics, but UBS also has data around female breadwinners and how women are retreating a little bit. And I don't want to say afraid, but there's ambivalence around their wealth, and they're deferring certain financial decisions to their male partners. There's studies, the UBS study goes into this in very granular detail and it's really interesting. And I think some of it comes down to just bandwidth and time. There was a quote from one woman who was saying, I'm the breadwinner, I do a lot of the housework, it just leaves no time to manage the investments or the personal finance. But then on the other hand, there's the embracing of financial power.
Right, absolutely. Well, and I would say too, so again, we've been on a 7-city tour talking to people in our community, and I think there are opportunities for women with wealth to make an impact on growing the pie, the amount of capital that can get allocated. So women with wealth can become LPs and invest in funds, and increasingly the barrier is coming down for that, which is really exciting. Women can invest as angel investors. I cannot tell you the number of friends I have who could be angel investors.
Really?
This is a huge opportunity, and I think could unlock more capital, especially for women at the earliest stages. And we know that's a critical time for them to get capital so they can grow their businesses and pursue subsequent rounds of funding. So for us, what we think about is what stories do we need to tell to help encourage women to take the reins of their finances and the capital that they have access to and turn it into not only an economic upside, but true power and an opportunity to change the way that culture works, because you're investing not just in these founders, but the innovation and the impact that they will have on society.
Are you finding that the women who could be angels are afraid of doing it, or they just don't know that they qualify?
They don't know. So many women don't even know about angel investing. And I think friends that I talk to often hear angel investing and say, I don't know anything about investing, so I can't get into it. But they're some of the smartest people I know. And so I think it's literally just people do not know that they could become angel investors.
We could probably do a separate interview on
But what
is one thing, if someone's watching and they know that they have a powerful job, that they like investing, or they have a lot of money saved, what's the first question they should ask or criteria they can check off so they know that they could qualify as an angel investor?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, go look at the definition of what you can be or what it takes to be an angel investor. So it's $250,000 per year in salary or above. It's $300,000 for a couple, I believe, and then $1 million in assets outside of your home. So if you have those things, you can check that box. But then the second is ask, what is angel investing? And start getting curious. Ask your friends about it. I find increasingly if people, especially women who tend to be so relational when it comes to things like investing, they could come together and learn about it together and then go in and do some angel investments with your friends. It can make a big difference. What's interesting to me is I was sitting next to a very successful woman GP 2 nights ago who said, my friends at business school don't even ask me for money because they don't think they can ask me for money. They don't think they can ask their other friends for money, and they can. And these are women in business school. So I think we just need to start talking about it. I think also in culture, in pop culture specifically, we need to showcase people who are angel investing, both in nonfiction depictions, so documentaries or in the news, but also in fictional, settings. So it would be really cool to see something like Insecure if they were having a conversation about angel investing, because that would be awesome. Then the women watching that show, can I do this? Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
It's important to get angel and seed and Series A investments, but from my perch, I look at the Forbes Midas list and I look at the gender breakdown. Yeah. Are you looking at getting more growth stage investors, or how do we get more women on the other side of, you need the seed capital, absolutely, because these companies need to get started. Yeah. But female-led companies also need to grow.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm feeling like there's sometimes a disconnect.
Yeah, we've heard the same thing as we've been talking to investors. So this goes back to growing the number of check writers. So firms, as they're making decisions about who they're going to hire at this later stage, if they're a later stage firm, hiring women to be in those seats, because again, they bring a competitive advantage, a different lens, a different skill set, which is really exciting. But then 2, thinking about promoting from within. Who is coming up through the ranks could step into that role. I think that's a great opportunity for firms who already have talent. And I'm hearing increasingly that there are women who are at those entry-level roles, associates, or women who are in the principal seat who want to jump into that opportunity. And this is why male allyship is so important. There are so many men who already sit in those check writer roles at the later stages. Invite women to the table with you because they will bring you better returns, more profitable exits.
As you've gone on your multi-city tour, have you been talking to founders, or are you focusing on the investors?
We've talked to both founders and investors. We've talked to operators, which has been really cool. And in fact, I would say operators are really interesting because there's so many operators we've met who've jumped into venture capital and become investors. And so it's really neat because we get all 3 perspectives.
I want to ask the same question about how to navigate a tough economic time, but from the founder perspective. We talked, or the operator perspective. We know that women are more capital efficient, but for a founder who might be watching right now and is feeling frustrated that they haven't raised in a while or are having trouble raising, what would you tell them? Yeah.
So first of all, I understand. I have deep empathy. I've been there. It's so challenging. So I have 3 pieces of advice. Number 1 is look at your business and get as efficient as possible. Ask, how can I create a business that serves my customer better than my competitors, and do that in the most efficient way possible. I think number 2 is create a game plan. So if you weren't able to raise capital and you're not going to raise capital for a period of time, what is your plan for lasting during a tough economic time? And I think great opportunities for businesses are to go out and find new customers. So customers who align with the current avatar that they serve really well, but also open up new markets, maybe people you hadn't considered servicing in the past. And the third and final piece of this is grow your networks now. If you eventually know that you need to go and raise capital, don't wait. Go and build relationships during this tough time. Show people your growth, your transformation, so they get excited about this journey with you. And when it comes time for you to raise, you already have those relationships.
You mentioned you've been there, and I should have started with your background, but I wanted to jump right into the news. But let's talk about your background, because you were at Founder Gym.
Yeah, that's right.
Right before AllRaise. Can you talk about what led you to AllRaise?
So what led me to AllRaise, I'll say that what I love about AllRaise is it's not just an organization, it's a movement. And that's what I love about building communities. You have an opportunity to build a movement to make some kind of important social change. So Founder Gym, I was the chief operating officer, but I did a little bit of everything, which was cool. I had the privilege of leading 18 cohorts over the course of 4 years that served founders on 6 continents and 26 countries. So we had 656 graduates from our program. And during that time, I was able to interview top investors and ask them questions about what's happening in the market, and then how can underrepresented founders use what they learn about the social norms of venture capital and angel investing, and then apply that to their own fundraising strategy and their pitch decks. And it was a phenomenal experience. The Founder Gym community is still very strong. The Founder Gym is not operating. The community members are out there doing big things, which is exciting.
And then you came to AllRaise and you were interim. What's the biggest difference between being interim and now that you're official?
Yeah, so when I started at AllRaise on May 9th of 2022, I was the chief of staff. And so at that time, I was, back of house is probably a good way to put it, right? Working really closely with our incredible team and our partners and volunteers. We have 150 plus volunteers. Wow. I know. We have the best community, I have to tell you. These are some of the hardest working people, and they show up early in the morning, late at night. So stepping into this role, being out front more and talking to the community more, and then visioning for what the future is going to look like. It's a lot of fun, but it's a big difference from being back of house and operating. Yeah, that's right, behind the scenes, and now being up front.
So you're on your multi-city journey.
Yes.
You're talking to the community. You're looking at growing the community.
Yes.
If we were to speak 1 year from now, what would you want to report to me about what you and AllRaise have accomplished?
I would want to report to you that it is very clear where AllRaise is going, which is really exciting. And that is rooted in 3 things. Number 1, we have clarity about the offerings for our community. So we've done some incredible programming, whether it's the VC Summit, where I met you in person for the first time last year, or it's our VC cohorts, our VC Champions program, helping mentor the next generation of check writers, essentially. I think the other piece of this, though, is giving us clarity about where we need to be. So we're currently in 6 cities, and we're going to launch our 7th city, our 7th chapter in San Francisco next year, which is very exciting. But there are other cities that need AllRaise's support, right, as they grow their venture and tech ecosystem. I think number 2, what that looks like for us is having an incredible team internally and with our volunteers that can help scale our work. So we have, like I said, volunteers all across the country. And we have an incredible team that we're continuing to grow to meet the needs. And then the third part is powerful storytelling. This is a huge piece of, you know this, you do this all the time, but it's telling the stories of successful women and non-binary investors, founders, and operators, and changing what it means to be a successful investor, operator, and founder. Because I think before now there's an archetype about who that person is, and it often isn't a woman or a person of color or a non-binary person. And so I think that's where AllRaise has a unique opportunity through our data, our thought leadership, and then also showcasing all the people who are already doing the work to change that in society.
Well, I look forward to watching your journey.
I can't wait. Thanks for having me today.
Thanks so much.
Awesome.